Hello there and welcome to Joy News today. Coming up this hour, businessman Alfred Agbeshiwoyeme freed by the Accra High Courts on 2 counts of causing financial loss to the state and defrauding by false pretense. Also to come, minority members of parliament heckle Finance Minister Setekpe as he appears before parliament to deliver government's revised economic policy statement. Fire guards private restaurant at the Kotoka International Airport. 2 people have been hospitalized as a result. My name is Kamini Nyamani, and I'll bring you details of those stories and plenty others over the next hour here on Joy News Today. Don't go away.
Where protesters had gathered.
Thanks for staying here. Now, the High Court in Accra has acquitted and discharged businessman Alfred Woyeme on 2 counts of defrauding by false pretense and causing financial loss to the state. The case that had gripped the attention of the nation for more than 3 years ended with the judge pointing out that the prosecution had done a sloppy job. Outside the courtroom, Mr. Woyeme's lawyer, Musa Ahmed, told Joy News that justice had been served.
I say this on record that the judgment is one of the best I have ever heard in recent times.
Let me ask, I know from the one I've been part of, do you know why, for example, the likes of Batino and the rest were not called?
Well, I'm not in the team of the prosecution, so I wouldn't be in a position to speak for them. It is the prosecution team who can speak to this matter.
Now, let me ask again. I mean, at the last time they went to the Supreme Court, summer 2014, and there's a judgment against the women to bring back the money. What does this particular judgment mean to that particular case?
You see, there is a clear distinction between criminal prosecution and institution of civil action for claims. Criminal prosecution, the requirement for proof of the person's guilt is beyond reasonable doubt. The standard is very high. But in the case of a civil claim, the standard required of the claimant or the plaintiff is one on a balance of probability. So it's not the same. You can't put the two together and get the same conclusion. One is different, the other is also a different, so based on different principles.
From the Supreme Court ruling, has he started paying the money?
Well, I am not instructed to speak about this matter because it is a privilege between myself as a lawyer and my client. I cannot speak to that in public.
Well, I know that 3 years has been such a long time. I mean, moving forward, how is it going to be like for you guys?
Well, you see, we need to develop our criminal law. If you allege that an offense has been committed, constitutionally, the best thing is to put the person who has been charged before the court. You don't put him before the street. You put him before the court so that at the end of it, you would have advanced the course of our criminal justice system. And as for me, I believe that whether 3 years or more, it is good for the accused person and also good for the state, the public to know that, well, the court is always the place where you can obtain justice, you can seek your liberty, where you can say that, yes, I have been discharged, I have been prosecuted. At the end of it, I have been discharged, and that makes you proud as a citizen of Ghana. It means also that in Ghana we are now constitutionally correct. We are dealing with the law. We are looking at the liberties of the individual as being paramount in all matters of state prosecution and other things. And so, for me, time does not matter in prosecution of people, and as far as also liberties are concerned.
Thank you very much.
Subsequently, private legal practitioner Egbert Fable says he is not surprised by the ruling.
I'm not surprised. Some of us went on record publicly on radio and in several other fora to say at the commencement of the proceedings that there was one fundamental challenge to the case of the prosecution, and it was that and has always been that. You see, Mr. Woyome did not go to the Bank of Ghana vaults or any vault belonging to the government of Ghana to forcibly take the money. He went to court against the government of Ghana, sued the government of Ghana originally, and the government of Ghana failed to file a defense to the action, which act of omission entitled Mr. Woyome to apply for judgment in default of defense. That judgment was granted him, and it is on the basis of that judgment that the government then proceeded to pay Mr. Woyome. So as far as the law goes, once you have a valid subsisting judgment of a court and you are enforcing it, you have not done any or committed any wrong. And that judgment also acts as a shield. Don't forget that the High Court of Ghana is one High Court. That is why we call it the High Court. The various divisions of the High Court that sit are of coordinate jurisdiction with the original High Court. So in what the prosecution sought to do, as far as I understand it, was that the very same High Court that had given Mr. Woyome his default judgment, which the government had failed, neglected, and refused to set aside, the government took Mr. Woyome before the same High Court and said, look, what you gave to Mr. Woyome by right hand, even though I have not asked that it should be set aside, can you sentence him for me for having collected the money on the back of your own judgment? Which court will do that? And as the judge said in the course of his judgment today, he said that, look, even the failure of the prosecution to call material witnesses like Mrs. Betty Modidrizu and the second deputy or the first deputy speaker of Parliament, Mr. Ebo Batnoto, did not do the prosecution's case any good.
Kojo Wusu-Efriye, former General Secretary for the New Patriotic Party, also private legal practitioner. Thanks for joining us here, Lawyer Efriye.
Thank you.
How does this come to you, this ruling?
Well, about 2 weeks or thereabout for the judgment of the court to be delivered, I have no doubt at all in my mind that the prosecution have not been able to prove their case beyond reasonable doubt, and that Woyome would be acquitted and discharged on all the counts. Especially, even on the second count, the man is not a public servant, and yet he has been charged with willfully causing financial loss to the state. I know for my life, I do not even know whether or not he went to the AG's department or to government with a gun in hand, pointed it to their heads and said, if you don't pay me so much, I'll do this or that. And so my joy is that the Supreme Court's decision that Woyome should pay the money is still there. But for that, the state from the beginning did not have interest in prosecuting this matter. Look, when Midday and others were all charged together, the Attorney General entered another process and got them out. I am sure. But for the public outcry, they would have entered another process in all the accused persons that they have put before the court. They left Woyome to fight. And instead of being interested in the prosecution, everybody saw how they were being lethargic. The judge had on countless occasions warned the state that if they failed to prosecute, they were going to discharge Mr. Woyome. And so for me, we cannot blame Woyome. He got his money from the court, and like Egbert says, instead of calling the material witness, they failed to do so. For what reasons, only the state can tell. And so I cannot fault the judgment. My interest is that, and I know I've learned from proper authorities that Woyome has indicated his acceptance of the Supreme Court decision, and that he will pay the money, and that I would urge the state to sit down with Woyome and agree to terms, instead of rushing again, to put him before court and getting it wrong. They should go and sit down with the lawyers of Woyome, properly find out how he's going to pay the money. And I believe that the whole country's interest is not either to see Woyome being imprisoned, but to pay the money. And if he says he's prepared to pay by a certain, installment, the state should listen and agree to terms and let the country move on, from here. There are more important monies out there again. Somebody owes 150 million just for. Another person is over 55 million, all bigger than Woyome's money. They have agreed to terms with one of them to pay it by installment. I cannot for my life understand why they will not agree to terms with Woyomi so that the monies are paid back to the state.
What difference would it have made if the state had presented the material witnesses Judge Najat had mentioned in his ruling?
Well, they know that, you see, I think it will still have inured to the benefit of Woyomi because the Deputy Attorney General, the former Deputy Attorney General, continues to insist that the money that they paid Woyomi, they paid it lawfully, and that Woyomi had not committed no offense. And the more it do so says the same thing. So even if they had presented them before the court, it seems to me they were going to, say things that would to the benefit of the accused person, and that either the state would then have treated them as hostile witnesses and cross-examine them as such. So whatever it was, if you look at the facts carefully, and the fact that we got judgment from the High Court initially and went to the state, and the state letters were written by Attorney General to the Finance Ministry to pay, and the monies were paid. I, for my life, did not understand why they were charging for fraud. Fraud for what? So from the word go, they had no links to stand on this thing. The interest, which is why the former Attorney General Joshua Amidu should be applauded. The interest of the state was to get our money. And the Supreme Court says, pay the money. Woyomi says, I am prepared to pay it. But I'm calling on the state to sit down and to agree on terms, rather than rushing again and getting it fortune.
Now, over the past 3 years since the hearing, this is the man who had been subjected to a lot of ridicule and name calling. Did the state just open itself up to a counter-suit from Woyomi? Is there a possibility of that?
Well, I'm not sure that it will be in the interest of Woyomi to open these kind of when. He's been acquitted and he's charged, and he's won his case, he's won his freedom. I think that what he should do if I were his lawyer is to advise him to go to terms with the state and pay the money, because at the end of the day, Ghanaians want to see our money paid back to chest. That is what our interest is. And once the Supreme Court says that he should pay the monies because, at the time that they were being paid, it had not even received parliamentary approval. Once that is there and he accepts the Supreme Court verdict, then he must quickly also go to terms with the state and pay us our money.
Indeed.
I think that Ghanaians would be interested in getting the money. Certainly, even if you put Woyomi in, what joy would you serve the ordinary man in the street? Our money would have been lost. But now that we can have our money, and he says, I'm prepared to pay, but I'm prepared to go to terms with the state, let the state avail itself of that opportunity, and let us all, put this behind us.
Indeed, Lawyer Free, I'm grateful for your time. Lawyer Kwejo Free is former General Secretary for the New Patriotic Party. Now, Chief Justice Georgina Wood has instructed judges to work overtime where necessary to help clear the backlog of remand cases. This was after she led a team of judges to watch the fascinating Joy News documentary titled Locked and Forgotten. According to Justice Wood, the viewing at the head office of the Judicial Service was to get the judges to familiarize themselves with the inhumane conditions in the prisons. The producer of the documentary said Kwame Boateng sat through the viewing session with these judges.
She told them that she wanted them to have a feel to understand the plight of these people. She wanted them to also see the conditions in there, how the remand prisoners were surviving, or were the experiences. She wanted them to have a feel. So she sat with them, and for about 2 hours, we were with the Chief Justice and the 40 judges watching this documentary and asking questions.
Have a feel. Is it to suggest that judges don't know what pertains in our prisons?
They have been told about some of the conditions in there,
really have no
exactly. They didn't know about some of the issues you've raised in this documentary. For example, they hadn't entered the cells to look at the conditions there, how they sleep, even the food they eat.
Situation.
So you know what is happening? Coming Saturday, she's dispatching these 40 judges from the Greater Accra region. 20 will be in Nsawam, 20 will be in Akuse. She wants them to stay there for a while, understand the conditions there, the plight of the people, enter their cells, so that when they are sentencing, they will consider all these things before they sentence them.
I'm sure you were also not enthused about the fact that there appeared to be a total disconnect between those who sentence people to jail and the actual conditions.
I was a bit surprised listening to some of them, those who sat behind me, the comments they were making. They were surprised, Stephen. I wasn't sure. So the Chief Justice has also issued some directives. For example, starting next month, they are starting this Justice for All program. And in fact, next week, they will start from Akuse. They will start from Koforidua, then move to Akuse.
Is there any special reason why they're starting from Koforidua or Akuse?
She tells me again it's because of the documentary. So they will go nationwide. They will start visiting the various prisons. So next month, the whole of April and May, she has directed her judges that they should move to the various prisons and look at the remand cases. And she has also directed that they call something discharge warrants. In the past, police officers were supposed to pick these warrants, take to prisons, and get inmates who have been freed to go home. But she believes they have not been doing too well. So she has put together a committee. Henceforth, the police will not handle this. Officers from the Judicial Service, Justice Department, will move to the prisons themselves and hand over these warrants, so that people who have been freed and are still languishing in jail will have the opportunity to go home.
So what is the feedback you're getting on this documentary since it started airing?
A lot of people have called, a lot of people are willing to go in and help. And the inmates have had a number of calls from lawyers willing to travel, some to Sunyani, some to Tamale, to defend some of these remand prisoners.
Finance Minister Setekwe has been heckled in Parliament as he attempted to present the government's revised economic policy statement. The statement was expected to highlight government's plans to reduce expenditure as it grapples with a weakening economy. Let's now go to parliamentary correspondent Emmanuel Ante for more. Hello, Emmanuel.
Hello, Kemini.
Why was the minister heckled?
Well, 2 weeks ago, the minister brought us a request to Parliament that he will be coming to review for a budget review. But today, it has said, when the majority leader was announcing the minister's statement, he said that the minister is coming to read a statement. And so the minority leader raised a concern that the previous one was a budget review. How did it turn into a full statement? And that is their concern, that if that so be it, then it means the minister will have to file a motion for it to be adopted before it can be accepted in the House, and then he will come and make that statement. The minority also believe, I was speaking to Dr. Marcus B. Yeboah earlier on. He was raising concerns. He's a member of the Finance Committee, and he is saying that it is because of the IMF deal that we have with them, and there are some big shots in the House to as a statement or in one of the policies of the IMF, they are making the statement on the floor to give it some weight. And they have brought in some members of the security, big shots from the government to come and support it, to give it a weight, and for the IMF to believe what they are, or the whatever proposals they have made in the IMF deal to hold ground. And so that is the reason why the minority are refusing to allow the Minister of Finance to come and make that statement on the floor, Kennedy.
I see. So what is it that the minority is expecting Setekwe to do?
They expect him to go back, file a motion, and then for it to be adopted by the Speaker before he comes back to read the statement. They said if it were just a statement, then he should have held a press conference elsewhere, anywhere at all he wants, to hold that press conference and then make her or announces whatever he wants to say. But because it's in Parliament, he needs to follow due process. and that is he should go and file a motion for it to be accepted before he comes back to make that statement. But before that, if he wants to make a statement, then it should be on the review, budget review, and not a full statement as he has sent it.
So what is the possibility of Mr. Tekpe presenting the policy statement in Parliament today?
As I speak to you now, the House is on suspension. The leaders are meeting to see whether they will allow the Minister of Finance to come and make the statement, or it will be deferred to another day. So they are holding a meeting, and we have all been sacked out of the chamber for them to allow them to hold their in-camera meeting before it is announced. They're speaking to some of the minority outside. Majority, I was trying to get them. They were saying, no, this is why they can't come on air to say something. So I approached the minority, and they are saying that they don't want the minister to make the statement. If he's coming to make a statement, then it should be on the budget review and not any other thing. So for them, I guess they will still hold. The speaker at a point was even trying to hold the members by one of the standing orders of the House, which gives the speaker the right to walk any member of parliament out of parliament, for him to be escorted out by the marshal of parliament. But he restrained himself, and he mentioned it. He read the whole article, and then later referred the matter to the leadership to go, and because the members were really agitated, and they were making noise. They were drumming the stables in the house and all that. So
if Mr. Tekpe was to file, if Mr. Tekpe was to file that motion in Parliament, is there the possibility that he could still present the policy statement today?
That will not be done today. If he has to file it, he will file it. It will come to the Speaker's House. If anything, then probably they might consider, and then he will read it maybe tomorrow. But today, as we speak, with the time that we have on our hands, Parliament is supposed to close at 2. But if any emergency comes in, they are expected, or they are allowed to extend sitting. They will announce it and then extend sitting. But as I speak to you now, I don't think the minister, if they don't agree, that is, if they don't agree in the meeting they are holding, he cannot make this statement.
Emmanuel, thank you very much for the report. We'll get back to you for more as and when Parliament resumes sitting. You're watching Joy News today. There's more to come. Don't go away. Let's go back to our earlier story where the High Court in Accra has acquitted and discharged businessman Alfred Woyome on 2 counts of defrauding by false pretense and causing financial loss to the state. The case that had gripped the attention of the nation for more than 3 years ended with a judge pointing out that the prosecution had done a sloppy job. Outside the courtroom, Mr. Woyome's lawyer Musa Ahmed told Joy News that justice has been served. We can now speak with our court correspondent, Aniu Sabute, who's been following the case closely. He's here with me in the studio. Thanks for joining us here.
Hi, thank you.
What was the mood in court today?
So the mood was very somber. Let me just say that. Let me just paint a picture outside from the court, and you could see from the visuals, for example, security presence was massive. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen something like that. The last time was, I think it was the Chajikates case at the time. But the police brought a lot of army tanks. For example, there were 2 army tanks in the court premises itself. And then there were 2 outside, close to where the National Lotteries was, and then another one on the other side. And then there were police presence spread across the platform. But, you know, going on, because I've been to the court and I've been following this case right from day one, I knew some of the faces of Woyome's relatives. So when it came, they were much more relaxed, especially those outside. Very quiet, very calm, you know, they were unsure what exactly was going to happen. Because ordinarily, if you see some of these police presence, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the guy going to go to jail? Okay, so they were kind of relaxed. Then eventually did go into the courtroom, and, you know, it was kind of relaxed. But at the time when the rulings, the ruling was being done, and, you know, based on their own interpretation of what the judge is saying, and appears to be going for them. For example, Woyome's wife was dressed in a blue top, would be nodding, for example, in agreement with what the judge is saying. But Woyome was in the box, remained very relaxed, quiet, you know, it's held a hand like that, and it was very quiet, and it was not even looking at the direction of the judge, but it was more or less like looking outside the courtroom. His brother was also there. and everybody was kind of relaxed. And then I remember when the first count of defrauding by false pretense, he was discharged and acquitted on that. And then you could sense that he was a bit relaxed, and I tried to sort of catch a glimpse of him, and he was winking his eye. You know, so I mean, from there, they started getting some momentum that something really positive is going to come their way.
But there were some supporters also in court today.
Absolutely, and he's always come to the court, especially when the case appears to be getting a much more moving to such a level that excitement is more, for want of a better word. Supporters will always come around, and today they came. They were outside, and when the verdict was given, you know, right there outside, they started singing, they started screaming, they started waving their handkerchiefs and everything, and singing in praise of God. I mean, actually, even just mentioning his name and punching the air, you know, in excitement. Yeah.
I see. But then, in reading his ruling, Judge Najat described the prosecution's work as very sloppy. How did he come to that conclusion?
Absolutely. You know, nine witnesses, prosecution witnesses, were invited. Part of the reason also, according to him, was the fact that some of the prosecution witnesses that were caught, even their own testimony did go to corroborate what Alfred Women had said. So which means that, for example, mention one Olande, okay, was relied on by the state to prosecute the case, and they believe that his testimony did go to corroborate what Woyome had said, that he had a contract to the state, and therefore was entitled to every money that ought to have come to him. Also, he mentioned Van Ledosu. Van Ledosu, for example, was the deputy governor at the central bank at the time, and also served on the local organizing committee. But when he came to the court, you know, his testimony was purely about the procurement process of the whole case, and not necessarily like saying anything incriminating against them. Now, he wondered why, for example, Betty Modidris was the Attorney General at the time and later became Education Minister before she left government. She was yanked out of government. Betty Modidris is now the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, for example, who actually wrote that indeed Alfred Woyome is entitled to the money, okay, was not, the two were not invited to come and testify. Again, Magnus Resdankwa, who was also key in the 2008 Nations Cup organizing committee. Why was he not invited? Paul Asumeni, who initially, for example, was dragged into the case because he was also standing trial for abetting in what they believe was the criminal case before the state filed a nolle prosequi in June 5. Okay. Why was he also not brought in to come and testify against, and rather you assemble 9 people whose testimony, for example, according to the judge, you know, did not hold enough water. Also, there was a point, for example, where he also talked about the fact that Kwekwaji Mamenu came to the court, and some of the exhibits he brought were incomplete. And he said you do not expect the court to rely on an incomplete document to prosecute a case. It's a complete waste of time. And described as shoddy, lackadaisical attitude, and he felt that they did not really do justice to the whole process itself.
What was prosecution's reaction to those descriptions?
Well, you know, when he was standing in the box and just some few meters away from him, Marita Brew, who is the agent, was sitting there. And then the senior prosecutor, state attorney, Cynthia Lamte, was sitting there. And at every time that they've come under a lot of punches, I've looked at them, and you could sense the discomfort in their faces. You could literally smell discomfort, you know, written all over their faces. And we're kind of uncomfortable because it's like your competence is now being stripped bare in the open, and it's being more or less like dissected to see that A, B, C, D did not go right. So they were extremely uncomfortable. So as soon as the ruling was done and the judge just got out of his seat, they just left the courtroom. Indeed.
Now, for the purpose of those who may not have been following this case over the past 3 years, share with us how events unfolded in this particular case.
Let's just say somewhere in 2012, for example, then John Mills, you know, commissioned the Economic and Organized Crime Office, that's YOCO, to carry out an investigation into allegations, for example, that Woyome had benefited from money that ought not to have gone to him in the first place. So an interim report was submitted to the president at the time, or that was on February 2nd. The following day, Alfred Williams was arrested. And I remember speaking to him and describing that he was arrested in a Rambo style, and that is like the state was against him. 3 days later, he was arraigned before court, and 3 charges were preferred against him: conspiracy to commit crime, defrauding by false pretense, and then causing financial loss. In the course of the process, then they brought in Samuel Tetenekwe and that of his wife, and then Paul Atsumini. Paul Atsumini was in the legal department at the Ministry of Finance. Now, however, June 5, 2012, the state filed a nolle prosequi to disengage with the case. So the state had to now come back with fresh charges. And so they dropped conspiracy to commit crime, and then they maintained the one that says that defrauding by false pretense and causing financial loss to the state. Now, moving on, so then they started inviting witnesses. And after the 9 witnesses had been exhausted, then Alfred Williams submitted a case of no submit. He submitted a case of that the state has no case whatsoever against him. However, the judge said, no, you have to come and open your defense. He did not call any witness. He went there on his own. He sat in the box and he answered every question from his lawyers and was cross-examined up until we got here. But then he also mentioned that in the course of the trial itself, Martin Amidu filed an action at the Supreme Court, which ended by a unanimous decision that Africa should bring back the 51.2 million Ghana cedis.
Which is the next step from here?
Now, the point is that now, the AG filed for a review and steps to retrieve the money. I spoke to his lawyer, Musa Ahmed, and he talked about the fact that he's unable to tell me because he's more or less a client and a lawyer's kind of privilege and stuff. Like, he's not going to talk about that. Then the issue of appeal, because there's a lot of talk about the states going back there to go and appeal, and he believes that, well, for them, so far as they're concerned, Alfred Williams has absolutely nothing to answer. If they come on appeal, they will go back with the same evidence that they have, and then they will. Let me just, before I just take a leave of, let me just also mention, for example, that 2010, when Alfred Williams received the default judgment from the commercial court, one of the things that came up in the ruling was the fact that how on earth did the state not enter an appearance? So it's not as if, for example, Alfred Williams just got out of his house one morning and walked there with a gun to somebody's and said, pay me the money. But he obtained that through a court process and was not contested. So he felt that then Batin Odro, Betty Mududusu, these 2 persons ought to have been brought to testify.
So then, I mean, for the Ghanaian people, as a matter of retrieving the monies paid to Alfred Woyome, there's no clear direction on that at the moment. We don't know when the money is coming or how it will be paid.
For now, I mean, let's just say that for now, the case was standing on different legs. Now the leg on which it stands, that has to do with the criminal case, is completely off the table right now. So now it has to do with the one that was filed by Martin Amidu at the Supreme Court, which was unanimously given to him. So which the state said is in the process of filing. We don't know the state as to which or exact of that yet, whether or not they made inroads or not.
Right. Thank you very much, Annie, for giving us this information. Annie Sabote is our court correspondent here at Joy News. We follow this issue closely in subsequent broadcasts. Now, today is World Kidney Day, and the head of the outpatient department of the Ridge Hospital says patients who need kidney transplant are finding difficulties getting donors in this part of the world due to misconceptions. Most donors believe they will not survive on one kidney. Speaking on the AM show on Joy News, Dr. Ebenezer Ojo-Mensah revealed that the list of patients waiting for kidney transplant is growing by the day.
Anything foreign, So if you put anything foreign into another body, the body basically marshals its soldiers to fight against that, what they term foreign, and kill it. So you need a very perfect or a near perfect match, which is why most donors has to be a relative, or they stay on the waiting list for very long periods waiting for a donor. Because it's difficult to get the near perfect match.
If I donate to you and your body rejects, can I have my kidney back?
It destroys the kidney. Yes. It sends its soldiers to destroy that kidney.
Wow.
So you cannot have the kidney back if the body rejects it. That kidney is gone.
So this is very serious. And so on this day, I want the last thing that will be on our minds to be, what to do not to get, not to introduce any problem to your kidney?
Well, kidney injury could be acute. And for acute sudden onset over a short period, most of them can be reversed. If it's chronic, that is where we tend to have a challenge and they tend to require dialysis or transplant. And one of the common causes of chronic kidney disease has to be old friends, hypertension and diabetes, which quite a number of our older folks have. A tight control of blood pressure, that hypertension and diabetes, helps to prevent kidney disease. A lot of people have kidney disease, but very few progress to end-stage failure, and that is when you nearer death. So it's important that those of us with hypertension and diabetes, we ensure a strict control, we ensure strict drug compliance.
Elizabeth Asantewa suffered injuries when a bomb exploded on 6th March 1964, as she was about presenting a bouquet to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah at the Independence Anniversary celebration. Thankfully, she survived, but 51 years on, she is a pauper and afraid her deteriorating health could kill her any moment. Felix Okoyam tells her story. Now, viewers are cautioned some of the visuals could be disturbing.
What I just saw was boom. It lifted me up and brought me back onto the ground. It was a big blast. All I saw was my leg burning.
She was too young at the time to understand what happened to her. As time went on, she grew to understand her situation. Her leg then started decaying. Elizabeth Asantewa's leg was amputated to prevent the spread of the impact of the bomb explosion so she can continue to live. Her disfigured supporting leg is decaying by the day. She usually walks with the support of crutches.
I feel general weakness. I need constant massage. I often feel dizzy. It's tough for me.
Today, the case is different. Her condition worsens daily due to lack of medical care. For Elizabeth, if her pain does not kill her, hunger might.
Sometimes, when I don't have money, I only drink water and sleep.
If only Elizabeth, her parents, or whoever nominated her for that glorious moment to present a bouquet to Osajifo had known the aftermath, they would have turned down the opportunity. The bomb exploded with her dreams. Elizabeth tells me Dr. Kwame Nkrumah promised her niece will be provided for by the government. This support ended with his overthrow. Elizabeth has some hope, but that keeps fading with each passing day as she grapples with the reality of her decaying leg and the help that may never come.
I'm pleading with the president. He knows my story. I'm appealing to him and all Ghanaians to help me.
Felix Akoyam, Joy News.
Now, 2 persons have been hospitalized after fire gutted a private restaurant at the Kotoka International Airport. My colleague Beatrice Adu was there earlier, and she's here with me in the studio with some detail of this particular situation at the airport. Right, Beatrice.
Hi, Kemini.
The fire is off now, but
yes.
Exactly what led to this?
According to a lady who works at this restaurant, she was with 5 others cooking when they realized that the tube connecting the valve of the gas cylinder had removed. And because the fire was already on, it just caught the fire, it just exploded. And so that was basically what happened. And it happened around 8 o'clock this morning. All of them had to run for their lives. And in the process, of course, the first person was injured. She had actually gone to hide behind one of the doors and she inhaled the smoke, so immediately she collapsed. And the second person was also injured on the leg when she was trying to escape from this blaze.
Where exactly is this restaurant positioned at the airport?
It's at the cargo door. Terminal 1. That's precisely how they describe it. So it's within that building. That's where it happened.
What have airport authorities been saying about this?
Interestingly, they have released a statement, and I'll just go through with you very briefly. They start by giving the background to this fire, and then they go on to say that there was an immediate response from the Rescue and Firefighting Service of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, supported by a team from the Ghana National Fire Service, and the fire was brought under control. And the information I picked up after this statement was that this whole fire was brought under control in about 10 minutes. And it goes on to say that the Ghana Airport Company Limited wishes to assure the general public that operations at the airport was in no way affected by the incident. An investigation into the cause of the fire is ongoing. So basically, this is what the Ghana Airport Company Limited is saying about what happened at the restaurant this morning.
And we understand the restaurant lost everything.
Not precisely. The person who spoke to me said that everything, she was actually in the fire, but later the owner was allowed into the restaurant, and she told me that it was the kitchen that was gutted, so she lost everything at the kitchen. But the main restaurant, which is out of the kitchen, but of course within the same enclave, they were able to salvage some items.
Oh, Beatrice, thank you very much for this. Beatrice Aju was at the airport earlier where fires gutted a private restaurant, the Cargo Terminal 1. There's more to come here on Joy News Today. Don't go away.
Good afternoon, my name is Baba Tando. Let's talk sports now, and we begin with Ghana's under-20 side, the Black Satellites, who are looking forward to an early qualification for the semi-finals of the ongoing Africa Youth Championship in Senegal when they face Zambia in the second Group D game in Imbo. Now, a win for the Satellites, who won their opening game 2-0 against South Africa, could also secure qualification to this year's FIFA Under-20 World Cup in New Zealand. My colleague Benedict Owusu-Dankwa joins me now on phone. Hello, bonjour, Benedict.
Ça va?
Oui, ça va. Benedict, tell me, the clock is ticking. At 7 p.m. today, we play against Zambia. What are you picking up from the camp of the Satellites?
Well, as you said, at 7:30 we'll play against Zambia, and that will be our second good game in Group D. And if the Black Satellites are able to win that game, they qualify for the next stage of the competition and also qualify for the 2016 World Cup in New Zealand. And what I'm picking up is that Coach Lastica has maintained the same team that started their game against South Africa tonight for the Zambian game, and has goalkeeper Mutawakili Seydou will be in post while his teammates and captain Owusu Bempah will play at right back, with the United Patrick Asma on the left hand side, on the left side of the pitch, and also Joseph AJ and Joseph Edu will be in central defense, whilst Michael Otu and Clifford Abwaje will control affairs in the midfield. Now, the shootout of Bra, as we saw in the first game, will have picked from the right flank with Prosper Kasi playing from left, and Yao Yeboah and striker Benjamin Tete, who scored Ghana's second goal in a game against South Africa, will be in attack. So basically, this is what's happening. Coach Lasete has maintained the team that won against South Africa. Baba.
Thanks very much, and we'll get back to you in our subsequent bulletins for more updates from Senegal, where the Black Satellites of Ghana are taking part in the Africa Youth Championship. Now, away from football, let's talk about other issues. Now, Chairman of the Ghana Athletics Association, Professor Francis Dodu, has expressed serious misgivings at the way sports is funded in the country. This was after the Federation failed to raise the needed funds for Ghana's participation at the 2015 African Junior Athletics Championships in Addis Ababa. The chairman, who also doubles as the president of the Ghana Olympic Committee, is pessimistic of the Ghanaian sporting future and its prospects.
We don't have funding, so we couldn't, to get money to take a team of 15 or so athletes all the way to Addis Ababa, put them up for, we just don't have the money for it. Our budget hasn't been funded yet, so, we've had 3 years of this non-funding issue, and if we really are interested in making sure that we present ourselves properly at the Olympics, it's a cumulative process, you have to expose your athletes to these major competitions so that they get competition hard, competition ready, but it's all a matter of support, really. Yeah.
Now, earlier this month, Youth and Sports Minister Mahama Yarika alleged that the sports associations under the National Sports Authority failed to submit their yearly budgets on time, making it difficult for approval. But the various associations have actually debunked this allegation, calling it unfortunate. Richard Akpokavi is vice chairman of the Ghana Hockey Association.
Yes, it's not only affiliation fees. For the last 3 years, we haven't received any money at all, even for the national teams when they are traveling. That's a difficult one. Now, we've tried, with the federations, we all work to the National Sports Authority. So we are doing our best to try and get them to understand it. So we are doing it this year. We have started again. I've had a discussion with the Director General to see how best. They are also putting some pressure on the ministry. So we'll see how best. It is your responsibility to, as sports journalists, to keep on asking those who are in charge of this sports in this country to take decisions to help us to achieve our aims.
The Honourable Minister recently complained that the federations are not submitting their budgets, and also some of them are not interacting with them to make sure that your budgets are always responded to.
We don't deal with the ministry, we deal with the Sports Authority, and our budgets are submitted to the Sports Authority. If you remember, an announcement was made some time earlier that hockey, we were the first to submit our budget to the ministry. But yet when we asked for money to go to India, we have not received the money yet. It wasn't approved. So you see, there are issues. Yes, the minister, I understand where it's coming from, but it's not all the federations who are. There are several federations who are doing well. They submit budgets, they are prepared, they discuss with the Sports Authority, and yet we are not receiving our funding. But sometimes it's even approved by the Flagstaff House. Flagstaff is approved, goes to the Ministry of Finance, and it's stuck there.
So when you go down on your knees this afternoon, remember to say a prayer for the Black Satellites of Ghana, who are taking on Zambia in their second Group B game of the ongoing Africa Youth Championship in Senegal. A win for them will make qualification possible for the FIFA Under-20 World Cup coming up in New Zealand later this year. And that'll be it for sports. My name is Baba Tando. Have a good afternoon.
Entrepreneurship Support Initiative has received and reviewed over 2,800 applications so far. President John Mahama disclosed this when he visited the offices of a beneficiary of Botswana's version of a Youth Entrepreneurial Support Initiative.
We have more than 2,800 applications so far, and we are now going through to select the projects that qualify. They range across different sectors. There's quite a lot in agriculture and food production, in livestock, in different areas. But I'm happy to see an example of what projects like this can do.
The visit to the offices of D-Zone, a beneficiary of Botswana's Youth Development Program, was to assess the impact of the program and compare notes and lessons on the best way forward for the youth employment models in the two countries. Unlike Ghana's initiative, in which monies to be given beneficiaries are startup grants, beneficiaries of the Botswana Youth Development Program are required to pay back the loans given them by government within a period of time.
Through the Youth Development Fund, the ministry gives out funds to young people to start businesses at a maximum of 100,000, which is an equivalent of $10,240 per applicant. and a maximum of 450,000 per youth industry, which is a group of 5 to 10 young people.
D-Zone, a production company, started with a set of camera and computer, 1 employee and 2 interns. It now employs over 50 young people. President John Mahama invited the young entrepreneur Tabiso Maret-Wanning to Ghana to share his success story with the youth of Ghana when the YES initiative beneficiaries take off with their various projects.
Often when government initiates projects like this, people are skeptical, about whether they really will achieve the objective. But this is a living example. I wish that, we can bring you as an ambassador to Ghana sometime. When we select our beneficiaries of the YES program, I very much want to see you come to that ceremony and then talk about what you've been able to do here, so that it motivates our young people to see that what you have done, they also can do.
In Ghana, most of the applicants for the YES program are said to be focused on agriculture. But some of the activities that this youth-oriented company in Botswana is engaged in includes promoting Botswana's tourism sector, as well as businesses being run by young people in Botswana through advertisement. Giftian Dopia, Joy News, Gaborone, Botswana.
That's it for the segment. Our top stories here on Joy News today. Businessman Alfred Woyome freed by an Accra High Court on 2 counts of causing financial loss to the state and defrauded by false pretense. Minority members of Parliament heckle Finance Minister Setekwe as he appears before Parliament to deliver the government's revised economic policy statement. Fire gas private restaurant at the Kotoka International Airport resulted in the hospitalization of 2 staff of the hospital. Well, thanks for your company here. Find more news on myjoyonline.com. Do visit. My name is Kemini Nyamani. Amana. Have a good day.